Me too. I'm going to keep my mouth shut now.
We were just wondering what your favorite memory was, Uncle Vern, when you were a kid. What was your fondest memory growing up on the farm?
My dad's name?
What was
No,
your
he wants to
fondest?
know what your favorite memory is when you grew up on the farm.
The favorite
Just ask
memory?
which was the worst moment. That would be the best.
Oh, my favorite pal was my goat, Billy the goat.
What was your worst moment on the farm then?
Worst moment?
Yeah. What was the bad thing that happened on the farm that you remember when you were a kid?
Well, I almost got killed once. That was about the worst thing. Willard McCoy and I went down in the timber of the Glen Hopers, and we seen an old coal mine, so we called up to it. And Poodle went with us, our dog, and all at once he started barking. I looked up, and here come a whole herd of cattle right at us. And we were down in the creek, and we scrambled up the creek and climbed up an old tree, an old dead tree, and it started weaving, and Willard caught him on it first, and he jumped over me and knocked me out, right down in front of the cattle.
Oh.
Well, cattle, would they run? Would they come stampede you? I mean, would they run you over?
They were stampeding. They
Really?
were running hard. And old Poodles was there, and he tore right into him.
Oh.
And grabbed the one on the front and turned them, and they missed me. So I figured that was my worst day on the farm.
Yeah. That's when you saw your life flash before your eyes, huh?
And then about that same night, he lay down behind the car. Dad backed over the car and killed him.
Oh no, that's terrible.
Isn't that pitiful? Yeah.
So the dog Poodles that saved his
Oh
life.
no! I don't like that kind of story.
But she wanted the worst story.
That's a terrible story. What was your worst story on the farm, Mom? The worst thing that ever happened? Besides your rooster getting ate.
That was when I was trying to chase your geese. I think that was the worst one.
What?
You remember your geese?
Yeah.
What was it? You come home one time and Ruth and I had them in a tub, swimming them, and you got mad, boy, and Mom didn't beat us, but she bawled Ruth and I out. So we didn't fool with your geese no more.
No, Evans, no. You better not fool my geese. I'm trying to think. I can't.
What was the purpose of your geese? I mean, you didn't eat them.
What I raised was geese that hunters used for hunting, and they were called decoy. You know, they were I don't know, but they weren't white geese. They were colored. You know.
So when your folks would go hunting, when your dad would go hunting, he'd take one of your geese?
No. My dad would sell them to hunters.
Oh.
My dad never did any duck hunting. This is for duck hunting.
Oh.
They take the geese and they put them out in the pond, and the geese quack, and then the wild ones come in to find out what those quackers are doing down there, and then they shoot them. It's a dirty way of, you know.
She walked around the yard, and them old geese was popping right after her, following her.
Yeah, and but then my Aunt Lois was a teacher in Chicago schools, and her children would bring her, she taught in the lower grades, you know, and they wanted to bring their teacher presents. So what they would bring her is eggs, because up there in Chicago, they would have, the people would have a little pen in their backyard and raise a few chickens or geese.
They're doing that now again, they say in the paper.
And anyhow, they would bring her goose eggs. So Aunt Lois would bring the goose eggs down to the farm, and we would take an old broody hen, which is one that wanted to set on an egg, and put the goose eggs under her, and then she would hatch them out, you know. And sometimes they would hatch and sometimes they wouldn't. It depended upon whether they were fertile or not. But that's how I got geese, you know, on the farm. And so then it was my job to raise the geese. And so I took care of them, and my dad built me a special little house for the geese to roost in at night. You know, it's just a little, small little, like in my little shed, a utensil shed, we'd call it nowadays. And so we would, every night, I would take, in the morning I would let them out, and they would follow me right up to the orchard, and there was a pen in the orchard, and I'd put them in the pen there so they'd be safe, wouldn't wander all over. And then at night I'd feed them during the day, and then at night I'd go get them, and I'd just open the gate, and they would follow me right and go right into to roost for the night. Well, one day I was sick. I don't know what was wrong with me, and my mother said to my dad, "What, would you mind taking care of the geese for Helen this morning? She's sick." So my dad went out to let them out, and they wouldn't come out of the goose house for him. They all piled up on the back end of the thing, wouldn't come out. And he tried to get them out, and they wouldn't come out. So my dad had to come in and said to me, "I guess you're going to have to get dressed and go out. I can't get those geese. They won't come out." So I put my clothes on, sick as I was, and went out and opened the door, and I said, "Here, Goosey, Goosey." And they all come out and followed me right into the orchard. You know, they were used to me, you know. And so I raised those. And then I raised ducks also. And they were these kind that the hunters use for decoys. And I would raise them, and then the guys would come there and buy them for it. And he said they were the best decoys he ever had. They were real good quackers, you know, so the other ones, the wild ones would come in. And of course I was horse nuts. I loved horses just like Debbie. And so my Uncle Albert moved to Washington State, and before he moved, he brought to the farm where my dad lived a horse that he couldn't sell, and it was a riding horse. And I was thrilled to death because I always wanted a pony, and it was during the Depression. We couldn't afford a pony. We had just work horses that we used for plowing the ground. So when they brought that horse, it was Lady Bird, we called her. That was her name. I was tickled to death. I was telling Vern this story yesterday. I was so tickled to death. Oh boy, I got a horse to ride, you know. So I went in the house, and like Vern remembered it, I got a handkerchief and tied it like the cowboys do, you know. And I got a hat that looked like a cowboy hat.
Yeah, no straw hat.
And then I went out and put the bridle on the pony, on the horse. Had to climb up on the hay rack because I couldn't reach it. So I lead the horse up to the hay rack, and I'd climb up on the hay rack and then put the bridle on her, you know. We didn't have saddles then at all. And so the kid, Vern and Ruth, they wanted to ride. So I thought, well, I'll give them their rides first, then I can have the horse all to myself. I don't have to share it, you know. So I put Vern on the horse and led him down the road, you know, and she was so nice, you know, led her down the road and brought her back, and Vern got off on the hay rack. And that was Ruth's turn, and she got on the horse, led her down the road, come back just fine. Oh boy, now it's my turn, you know. So I gets on the horse and took a hold of the bridle and started down the road, and that horse started to bucking like everything.
No, it didn't buck everything. No, he just raised his rear end
He
up
bucked good. He bucked hard enough to buck me off, and I hung around his neck, and then finally I had to let loose. I'm not so mad.
She said, "The kids, don't get on that horse. He's gonna kill you. Don't get on that horse."
Did she get back on the horse then, Uncle Vern?
Huh?
Did she get back on the horse?
No, she scared us.
But she didn't get back on either?
No way. No, I was scared. I wasn't very old.
We didn't ride the horse no more.
I took his bridle off and put him in the barn. I never did have a pony ride. And then, of course, my Uncle Albert also brought this big old white goat. And he was a big thing. He was a big, big goat.
Big Billy goat.
Big Billy goat. Billy, we called him. And my dad made a harness for the goat, you know, with the bridle and tugs and everything. And then he built a little cart out of old cultivator wheels off of a cultivator, and a little seat on it, you know. And so then he hooked the goat up to the cart, and we'd get in it, and we could ride around around the house, and that goat would go like the dickens around the house on one wheel, and he'd turn around the corner.
He wouldn't go fast until he comes to the corner.
Yeah, then he'd
he
come
know
to the
he
corner,
could
and
tip us out.
he'd gallop, you know, up. You know. You tell about Dad riding it, Vern.
Yeah, Dad said, "Well, I'll fix him so he won't do that no more." Dad got in, and the goat pranced up there to the corner, and all at once the goat took off. over it went upside down, clean over. Goat and all. The goat was standing there with his legs going in the air like
Oh no, the goat was. I thought that was your dad that had the legs going in the air.
That was stretched out too on the ground.
Yeah, they all went over. And then we wanted to make it so we could ride further. We tried to get him to go down the road. And he wouldn't go down the
Yeah.
road. He
No,
would not
nothing
leave home. He
ours.
would not leave home at
Is
all.
what they
Nope.
call
So
a
we put
barn.
him in the wagon. We had a little wagon, you know. So we'd get the goat up into the wagon, and we'd pull him way down the road and pull the cart down there too. And then we'd hook him up to the cart, and then get into the cart and get him headed back toward home. And oh boy, that goat would give us the best ride because he was anxious to get home. He just galloped, but we'd have more fun, didn't we, Vern?
Yeah.
You know. And then I'll have to tell you a funny story about the goat. And we also had a sheep that my uncle brought down, and the goat and the sheep just got along wonderful together. They were buddies, you know, and they had the run of the barnyard, you know. So anyhow, during those days, you had men come around to the house selling spices and things, and the Raleigh man, they still have Raleigh products. And so anyhow, one day, because I was out of school, this is when I was a little older, and I was out of school and at home with my mom, and this guy came to sell Raleigh products, and it was pouring down rain, and he came up and took his little boots off and left them on the porch, you know, and he laid down his literature that he was, you know, that he carried with him to hand out literature. He laid that down along with his little basket of supplies to show us samples. And up comes this dumb goat behind him and grabs his literature and runs off with it. So he had to chase that and get it back, you know. And so anyhow, of course, Mom and I just thought it was funny, you know. We had to laugh about it, but we didn't let him see us laughing, you know. So then he came in the house, and my mother always bought cinnamon and pepper and vanilla from him, you know. And he went out, and he was going to get in his car and drive away. But those days they didn't have a starter. He had to get out and crank it, you know. So he put his stuff in the car and stooped over to crank the car, and along comes the goat behind him and butts him, you know, in the butt. And the guy got up and chased the goat away.
He
Mom
said,
and I could have left the goat, you know, in the yard and shut the gate, but it was too funny. He didn't
Mom,
see us, but we were having a lot of fun.
he said to Mom, "Is that the children's pet?" Mom said, "No, that's the children's pest."
Pest. And so anyhow, then he chased the goat away, and then he ran and he cranked again, and along comes the goat and butts him again, you know.
Oh,
And so the guy, you know what the guy did? He went into the cab and got his jacket out and put it over the goat's head so the goat couldn't see. And then he cranked his car and he grabbed this jacket and ran and jumped in his car quick so he could get away from the goat. So we had a lot of fun with that goat. And then when we moved from the farm and went into town, my dad gave it to the little girl that lived over on the next road. Leona Hoper got the goat, you know. And so I don't know whatever happened to it, you know. But we missed our goat.
Well, I know. Remember what happened? Dad told me they killed it, butchered it.
Oh no.
You don't know that. He's just
You
saying.
didn't know that? No, that was true. Dad told me that.
Well, the one goose that I had left, I called Jack, and my dad said I couldn't take that to farm. It was a big white goose, and it was so tame, and it would come and sit at night when I sat out on the porch and put his head under my arm, you know. And so my dad gave it to Mr. Blauser, the neighbor down the road, and they told me that he ate it.
Oh.
I don't know, but I don't want to think about it. But
But then they brought that old tame sheep up. Jones did, you know, that buck. Helen Jones used to ride it, that sheep. And that goat and that sheep would fight. And the goat, of course, he'd go up on his hind legs and stand there like this, and the sheep would come and hit him in the belly.
yeah, they'd hit each other, bang, they'd butt heads, you know, hit together. The whole ground would shake.
But the goat, he wanted to go through fancy stuff, you know, and stand on his hind legs and shake it. And then when he was doing that, the goat hit him in the belly, knocked him down.
And they ruined, Vern and I would stand on one side of the fence and tease them, and then they'd run at us, you know. But we had the fence, a wire fence, protecting us. They'd hit that fence, and my dad come over. He says, "What's happened to that fence?" It was all caved in, you know, from that goat and that sheep button on it. We never did tell him about it.
No. And the sheep would chase me. Then when he got right close to me, coming his head down, I put my hand on his head and leap over him. And the guy was talking to Dad out there one day. He looked, and he looked again. He said, "My gosh, that kid jumped right over that goat." I wasn't going to get bunted, so I just go right over his head and on the other side.
You did leapfrog with the goat.
Yeah.
Taking your chances as a goat that has horns, right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, we used to, you know, on the farm we put what we call put up hay, and they would bring it in on hay racks in front of the barn, and then there was a big fork that would come down and gather up the hay and pull it up, and then pull it into the barn, and then they would drop it in the barn. That's how they stored their hay for the winter. And the neighbor man came up to help, because our neighbors always helped one another do that. So Mr. Blauser came up to help, and he had a Model T Ford with what do you call them?
Side curtains.
Side curtains that you put on in the wintertime, and he had them on there still yet. He hadn't taken them off, and and it was hot. He was in the barn mowing the hay away, you know, spreading it out. She took off his brand new straw hat he just bought the day before. He took it off and threw it into the.
He didn't want to get it dirty.
He didn't want to get it dirty, and he threw it in the car, you know. So what did the goat do? The goat jumped into the car when he didn't notice. Nobody noticed it, and he ate the rim off of the straw hat, and just started eating the side curtains, you know.
It wasn't nothing
They
left
didn't
but
eat
the crown.
anything, you know, that
He
goat.
put the crown on his head.
It just was, and he come to get his hat, and oh boy was he mad. So
It probably cost him
he said,
50
"I
cents.
just bought this thing yesterday."
50 cents is a big price for a hat.
And then another time, one of the girls over on the next road was getting married, and they were giving her a shower over at Dolph Dunlap's house, not too far away from us. So my mother got dressed, and she took him and fixed the present for her, and we went walking across the fields, you know. And we got about halfway there, and we noticed, we turned around, and there was that darn sheep and that goat following us. And we didn't know what to do. It's too late to turn back and make them go back. So my mom said, "Well, we just have to leave them." So and it was the worst thing we could have done. We got to the party, you know, and went in the house, and anybody come, they'd chase after, but I'd have to run out and hold them so the people could get in the house, because the darn sheep and the goat would chase them. And the girls had to go out to the outhouse, and they'd chase them, so I'd have to go out and hold it. So then while we were all in the house opening the gifts, here was the sheep and the goat up on the porch looking in the big window. And of course, that was embarrassing for me. I wanted, you know, to be nice, you know. And here I was cumbered down with those goat and that sheep. It was awful embarrassing, you know, to have that happen.
They was pretty good friends until they got mad at one another. Then that was pretty bad.
Yeah, they were always together, that sheep and that goat. And then we got ready to go home, and they followed us home. It was crazy.
What did they do when they got mad at one another, Uncle Vern? The sheep and the goat. What
Oh,
would they
fight.
They
They put
fight
their
each
heads
other?
down and
Oh,
come
really?
together, knock each other down, and then goat stand up and get hit in the belly with the other sheep.
We had a great big tree in our yard. It was an old maple tree, and my dad had trimmed it, the top out of it, to keep it from getting so big. And it had kind of rottened out in the top. And we had an old gray cat we called Old Blue. She was gray, but we called her Old Blue. And then whenever she had kittens, she'd climb up on that tree and have those kittens in that hollowed out spot in the top of the tree. Well, my mother loved animals, and she was worried about those kittens, because if it rained, that would fill with water, you know, and drown them. So she got after my dad, "Well, you go up there." So he'd climb up there and get those kittens out, and bring them down and take them into the barn, you know. Next day, she'd have them all hauled back up into the tree again.
Oh.
And I don't know how many times she did that before she finally gave up and didn't haul them up in the tree anymore.
Well, that was the good old days on the farm there.
A lot of good memories.
Nothing went on that we didn't know about.
Yeah. Vern and I, it was our job to go behind the barn, and we had a horse that we hooked up to pull this hay up into the barn, you know, and you had to pull it back by pulley, you know, to the back. And the guy that was loading would load the fork full of hay would say, what would he say?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. And then we'd lead the horse down, and it would pull the hay up, and then we'd have to unbuckle her from the, I've forgotten the names of those tugs. You have to unbutton her, bring her back, and hook her up again, and wait for him to say, "Go ahead," you know, and that's how we did that, you know. And that was a hot spot behind that barn.
Yeah, remember the time the pulley broke? The rope come out of the top of the barn and went down to a post with a pulley on it.
Yeah.
Well, they put too big a load on it, and the post come up, went up, and the horse fell on his knees, and it was pulling the horse backwards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Sometimes there was accidents. It was scary.
Did it hurt the horse?
It didn't hurt the horse, no. But it didn't do us any good.
Yeah.
We just stood back and watched.
And my dad got the bright idea that he'd like to have mules to do the farm work. So he got a pair of mules with the big long ears, you know. So he always had me go out with him to the hay fields, and I would get up on the hay rack and drive the mules, and while he would pitch the hay up onto the we got it all loaded up, and then my dad says, "Now you drive them through the gate, and I'll shut the gate." And so I drove him through the gate, you know, and he went to shut the gate, and them darn mules took off down the road without my dad, you know, and me hold the reins, so whoa, 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 and I was laying on my back trying to keep him from going, you know, pulling back on him. And my dad had to run like the dickens to catch him, you know, and make him stop. So they was going home, you know, they got headed for home, and they were going home. They were hard to control, those mules were. He didn't have them very long. He finally got rid of them.
A lot of times old Blauser, he would push the hay fork down too far. And one time he went down too far and got in the floor of the hay rack. And we started off, and the hay rack, now the whole thing was going up. I don't know how, ho, 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 and I had to drop it back down.
We had 2 miles to walk to school, and it wasn't pavement or gravel, it was mud. It was just plain mud. And in the spring, we'd be walking, and our boots would get so full of mud we couldn't walk, you know. So then we'd have to stop off into the grass and get them all cleaned off before we could go on again, you know. And one day, it snowed all night long. And got up to go to school, and my mom said, "I don't think you kids better go to school today. It's awful. It snowed terrible, and it's awful deep snow, and I love school, and I wanted to go, and I'm going, you know," and I was set. So she let me. I got all ready and put my boots on, tied my scarf around my nose like I always did, the scalping cap, you know. And I started out, and I got about, maybe a block away from home, and I got stuck in the snow. I couldn't go. I couldn't walk. It was so deep, you know. So I had to try to make myself go back, work myself back home.
Yeah, you come back crying. I can remember that.
Yeah, I couldn't make it, you know. And we didn't have much on the farm. It was during the Depression. We didn't have a lot, but my mother always seemed to make the holidays special. And at Easter time, we didn't have no candy or anything, but she would color eggs, you know, by coloring, and make colored eggs. And then she'd hide them out either if it was bad weather, in the barn, or if it was nice weather, she would hide them out behind the house, because we had a lot of lilac bushes, and she'd put them in the center of that and under the bushes and everything, you know. And then she'd come and wake us kids up, and we'd go out and hunt the eggs. That was a lot of fun for us. And that Ruth was just a real little kid, you know. She's 6 years younger than I am, and of course I knew there was no Easter bunny at that time, and so anyhow, Ruth got up and looked out the window and saw my mother hiding those eggs. And Ruth says, "What's Mom doing out there? She's getting all the eggs." And I said, "Well, probably the Easter bunny just laid them in one nest and she's scattering them out, because I had to think of something quick, you know." Oh,
Yeah, Easter Bunny and Santa Claus are real things.
yeah.
Until
Oh
we,
yeah, so Santa Claus we had.
until we started school and then we found out that was
But she, you know, she was a wonderful mother, because she made, and at our birthdays, she always had a cake with candles on us. We didn't have no gifts or anything, but it was a special day for us, was a cake with candles. And my husband, when I married him, had never had a birthday cake. And he was 32 years old, and his mother never baked him a birthday cake. And so my first year of marriage, I baked him a cake. He couldn't believe it, that he never had one until then. I couldn't believe it. My mom never missed our birthdays.
Remember them chocolate pies? Boy, she was great on chocolate pies. But
Yeah.
I got so
What do
sick
you mean,
of
like what kind of chocolate pie?
Well, you make
Yeah,
the crust, and then
Like
you
a
bake the
pudding?
crust.
With the
You bake the
margarine.
crust, and then you make
had
the
the
pudding,
margarine
and you put it in
on
there,
top.
and then you take and beat up egg whites and make a meringue. Put it on and put it.
So it's a
in.
cold pie?
Hmm?
Or it's a cold pie? Cold.
Oh yeah, it'd have to be cold.
Where'd
If
you
it was,
put it, cold
if it was
pie?
hot, the pudding would be runny.
Yeah, but where'd you put cold pie if you didn't have a refrigerator?
Well, this would be in the wintertime. We'd set it out in the porch.
Yeah.
Where
It didn't last too long.
No.
About one meal and the pie was gone.
A lot of the stuff was made in the wintertime when it was cold. We couldn't have Jell-O in the summertime at all. We had to wait till wintertime.
Mm.
There was no way to, no refrigeration, you know.
And every winter, Dad would go and buy us a keg of herring.
Mm-hmm. A great big keg.
Yeah, that's tall kegs, about that big around, wooden kegs. And boy, we'd have herring for 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like herring?
Yeah, I liked it. It was good then.
Yeah, we always had, when we got together at New Year's, Vern and I and Ruth and Howard, we always had herring. We had to eat it right at midnight for good luck.
They would come in the whole herring, the head and all. They about that long.
And you scrape the hair, the skin, what do you call them? Squills or whatever you call them.
Gills?
Well, the
Fish gills?
gills, yeah.
Fins.
And you scrape them off and cut the head off and get the guts out of them and wash them good, and then soak them for a while to get the salt out of them, and then make vinegar dressing with onion and put them in there and leave them set for 3 or 4 hours. To this day, I love herring. That was an old German recipe. My mom was a good cook, but she was a German cook, and she cooked, good stuff that was from,
Every
Okay.
Sunday we had somebody come.
yeah, we had
For
company
dinner.
every Sunday come from town, and they would
Remember
eat
the
dinner with us.
Ortwines, you remember when they?
Yeah, my mother, this couple was named Ortwines, it was her last name, and they, somehow my dad had met him when he worked at the Service Rubber Company, when we lived in town for a little bit, and they came to visit us, and they came after dinner, and my mother said to them, "Oh, you don't do that when you come to the country, you come for a dinner." And from then on, every Sunday, they never missed coming. And
How
it
did
got
you
a
know
little-
they were coming and you had to
they
fix
just
other-
come, we knew they,
I mean,
but
that-
my mom always had a big dinner on, no matter whether
we'd
there's
be out in
company
the
there or
yard
not.
playing, and pretty soon we could hear an old car
Here come
coming,
Ortwines,
running out.
yeah.
Here comes the Ortwines.
Mm-hmm.
Mom would
And
say
it
a
got a
couple
little
bad
bit
words
old,
and
you know.
start cooking dinner.
Oh, man.
So what would your typical meal be on a Sunday? What'd you have for meat?
Well,
Well, mostly
usually
we never had beef much because my dad didn't butcher
chicken was
beef.
the main thing.
But we'd have chicken or pork, and my mom would can
Beef.
no beef. We never had beef, Vern. It was all pork. Because we never
once in a
butchered a
while
beef.
we'd have beef. Yeah, I remember Mama cooking it. Remember one time you was home, I guess, and we cooked a whole bunch of beef and it all spoiled.
That was pork.
You know,
That was pork, Vern, yeah.
and they
Dad
freeze
never
it.
butchered a beef, We never raised any we never raised any beef cattle.
Yeah, I remember.
No, the reason that all spoiled was that you have to cook it 3 hours, you know, in a hot bath. And my dad didn't have no wood. He didn't have hardly any wood out there. And I ran out of wood and I couldn't keep the fire going, you know, to keep it boiling. I was out scrounging all over the yard trying to find wood. I was worried about that because that was after Mom was gone.
Yeah.
Mom always said that your mother always creamed your vegetables. All your
Yeah.
vegetables were creamed.
Yeah, we never ate. No, like when I got married, my husband would not eat creamed vegetables. They were just cooked and salted and buttered. But my mother made creamed carrots, and she'd do that by putting butter in a pan and a little bit of flour and mixing that together. And then she'd add the milk and stir that until it got real creamy. And then she'd add the cooked vegetables and make it creamed vegetables. And we had creamed carrots, we had creamed peas, we had, she made creamed green beans. Oh, and the best new potatoes that were creamed with parsley on them. I can still taste them. Just go out and dig them right out of the ground, the little red potatoes, and make, you know, creamed potatoes.
We had a big garden, about
Oh boy, yeah.
half an acre
We
garden.
didn't know what it was to eat from cans. So the only thing my mother bought in cans was salmon. Other than that, all of our food was canned. All the vegetables, all the fruits, jellies, and preserves and pickles. And the dill pickles were picked and put in 50-gallon jars. They were big crockery jars, 50-gallon ones. And put a layer of the bigger pickles went on the bottom. You put a layer of pickles, and then you take fresh grape leaves and fresh cherry leaves and lay them over the top, and then fresh dill. You'd cut it up and lay the dill over that, and then put another layer of pickles. And as you got near to the top, you had the smaller pickles because they didn't take as long to cure. And then you would make a brine out of salt and pour that over there, and then you'd put a clean cloth over it. Mom always had real nice clean cloths. She'd put that over the top, and then a plate on top of that with a real clean rock on it to hold the plate down and hold it in there, and set it underneath a tree with a wash tub over it so the rain didn't get it. And it would ferment, you know. And then you'd go out there and I think it took about 2 weeks. You'd go out and there were pickles that were made without vinegar, and they were the best to taste in dill pickles. So I can still taste them. And my mother had always baked her own bread. Every other day she made 4 loaves of homemade bread and a pan of biscuits. And that was every other day she made bread. Because we ate bread with our meals. Every meal we ate bread. And I loved the crust. And so one day I came home from school hungry as a bear, and Mom had all this fresh bread spread out on the table cooling, and she was busy outside, so I proceeded to cut the crust off, and that tasted pretty good. So I cut the crust off the other end of the loaf. So I went through all 4 loaves and cut all the, I got a good calling out about that. You know, I never did that again. But it tasted good. With homemade butter, you know.
There was
Uncle
a,
Vern, what were some of your chores? Oh, go ahead. What were some of your chores on the farm to do? What things did you have to do growing up?
well, I raised rabbits.
Oh,
And I had over 100 of them at one time.
wow.
Did you raise them to eat, for people to eat?
I was supposed to, but most of the time I wouldn't want to get rid of them.
Oh.
They just keep multiplying. Pretty soon I'd have too many rabbits. And Dad said, you got to get rid of some of them rabbits. And he'd call people and they'd come and buy them. They were good eating rabbits, but I couldn't stand to see nobody eat them.
No. Okay, so were they domesticated rabbits that you?
Yeah.
Okay,
regular
okay.
Chinchilla, they call them. The
Oh, okay.
big gray rabbits.
Oh, yeah.
We have the house yard full and the orchard full of rabbit cages. And then we finally ended up put them in the brooder house in the wintertime. We didn't have enough. We had the whole brooder house full of rabbits.
Yeah, I had them in the barn too. The end of the barn
Yeah.
there.
Rabbits all over. They just
I
multiplied something terrible.
Had them pretty tame. I'd turn them out in the yard, and the cat would be out there, kind of creeping up on him. And the rabbit would jump over the cat and hit him with his hind feet. And the cat didn't bother him no more then.
Yeah.
Mom, how did you celebrate your first day on Christmas in Nebraska?
Well, I got a pencil box one year. That was the main thing I wanted. They were just coming out, and I woke up, and my mother was making the fire in the potbelly stove, and so I hollered out and asked if Santa Claus come. Yes, she says, he came. And so I went quick, throwed the cover off, and was gonna get out and go look, and she says, oh no, you stay in that cover, it's cold. She had her overshoes and everything on, trying to make a fire. And that was the way I got a big ball and a pencil box that year. That
Did you
was
How long did you go to school? What grade?
through high school.
You went all the way through high school?
But I didn't in Nebraska. At the end of that year, we graduated from the 8th grade. And if you didn't have a way to stay in town where the schools were, they weren't out in the country at all. You'd never get to go any further than the 8th grade. That's all you got to go, was the 8th grade. Helen too, I think, didn't you? Ruth got to go to high school because school buses came in by then, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So did you guys move into town to go to high school?
Yes, she wrote a letter to a lost, forlorn person and he had a son and a daughter, and they wanted to cook and someone to housekeep and everything. So she wrote to him and told him about what she did, and he came from Rock Island clear out to Nebraska to meet her on the train, and visited that day, and they decided they'd give it a try. So in a few weeks after that, the Lloyd, who my mother worked for, had to sell a bunch of things, iron and all kinds of things, maybe some cattle. He owed her about $100 or more because he couldn't even pay her the $2 a week. He didn't have $2. So we got our food and a place to sleep, but not any money much. So he did come up with all the money that she was due, and when we got there, there was only 2 pillows, one for Tom and one for his dad, and we didn't have any pillows, so she sent us to town, and that boy knew how to go right to town, and we had to get more pillows 2 or 3 times. That day we had to go to town because we didn't have things.
Mm-hmm.
But she saved money real good for him, and it wasn't long till we had enough money to stay in they had a lot of Jewish people around there that owned houses, and we bought a house or rented one. And then pretty soon my mother saved enough money for us she bought one on 14th Street, where we used to, he's seen that house, and they were in pretty good shape when he quit working. They had enough money saved and bought a house. And his one brother and his wife, she thought that was wonderful that we, in so quick a time, could have bought a house and was paying on it. And that's how I got to go to high school. The old 9th grade, it was 9th grade, now it used to be the high school, there in Rock Island, didn't it?
Yeah.
That was the high school.
So did you go to Rock Island High School?
Yeah, she went to Rock Island.
You went to Rock Island?
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
the big up on the hill there
Okay.
had walked. Oh, never could ride anything. He walked every day
Okay.
in it real cold. I walked. It was hard.
Did you ever go back to any of the class reunions?
Huh?
Did you ever go back to any of the class reunions?
No,
Okay.
I didn't like Rock Island.
Oh,
I wouldn't have gone back there if they paid me
Oh.
big money to come back.
oh.
No.
What was some of the names of your elementary children that you did like?
Oh, it was just a one-room schoolhouse for 8 years. I went there. Started out in the first row, and then you'd migrate over a little bit. And by the end, when I was going to get out of school, I was over in the last
She's
row.
talking about grade school.
Yeah, that was a grade school.
I went clean
What were
through
some of
high
the
school.
names?
Huh?
I said I went clean through high school. I
You
went
did?
in front door and walked out the back.
You didn't like school, I take it.
No.
What were some of the names like that farmers that had about 8 that rode a horse to school? What were some of
Oh,
those
that
names?
was McGuire's. They had 17 children, and one drowned in the horse tank, so there were 16 alive. And they, let's see, they all 3 at the last year rode. That's how we happened to name him Jerry. Was this little kid, the last one in the school, was named Jerry, and so we named him Jerry because that was a cute last little McGuire kid.
Oh. Jerry Maguire. Did you ever see the movie?
Have to rent that sometime.
Yeah.
Jerry Maguire.
And he got to go in my one-room schoolhouse. That's where I knew
Oh.
how to get in. A window that flipped up, and when he saw that and I saw it, we piled right in there. He was hollering, "Don't go in that schoolhouse," but it was too late. We went in the schoolhouse, and we didn't touch a thing, did we, Jerry?
No.
No, he looked at I seen him looking out up on the wall, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln or somebody's picture is always up there. And he looked at them, but he never touched them. And when we were finished, we went out the front door, turned the latch, and locked it and went out. So we never heard a thing. We didn't do any damage to it.
I was out there at the truck, had a map laying out on the hood, and
Like
pretending like
his
I was reading the
lost.
road map. So if anybody stopped and asked me what I was doing, I was reading road map.
That was a good decoy.
Yeah, them were good times.
Yeah, I wouldn't have missed it. We had coyotes every night, and I had
Windmill.
to walk just a half a mile to school.
You had a windmill.
Yes, we had a big windmill, and this man's father was really smart. You could turn a thing on the windmill one way, and it fill a horse tank. And when the horse tank was full, you'd have to walk down to the bottom of the hill and flip the thing another way, and it would pump water up the hill into like a
Cistern.
cistern. And then we could have had a pitcher pump in the kitchen, and we could pump water into the kitchen. If she had to wash, you had to pump water in a pail, carry it to the reservoir, throw it in the reservoir, let it heat a little. we
After you
used
got
to
the
cook.
grasshoppers out of it.
Yeah, we did. We had an infestation of grasshoppers. 1 year got in that.
Oh.
Oh, we had it was like in the sky, you couldn't even see hardly. There were so, had a worst thing of grasshoppers.
And they would eat all the crops, and so there wouldn't be any crops, right? Isn't that the
Well,
big?
they'd go right through
Oh, yeah,
crops.
they
That was a
ruined
bad year
the
for
crops.
And they'd eat them. Mm-hmm.
The people would put screens in front of their car, their old Model Ts, and put oil in the bottom in their trough, and then when the grasshoppers hit the car, they'd fall into the oil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
There were hard times out there, and it was pretty poor land, so we didn't grow corn like they did in Illinois. He called them nubbins, is what we grew.
Oh.
Yeah, corn about that long, they call it corn. We threw that stuff away.
Oh, yeah.
Did it not grow so big because the ground wasn't that
Yeah,
good?
and we had no fertilizer.
no.
See, now they fertilize.
No water
They
either.
got better
Oh,
corn.
water, yeah,
And
yeah.
they have better looking corn than Illinois even now. You'd be
Yeah, they got it
surprised.
all irrigated now.
It's all fertilized, and you only scooped up what was in the barns that the animals made the fertilizer.
Oh, yeah.
And that went out and throw it in the manure spreader around different. You put it wherever it was needed.
Yeah.
In those days, they didn't have corn pickers. All the corn was picked by
Picked by
hand.
hand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Had a big bang board, they called it, on the back side.
Mhm.
And my mother, she had to fix breakfast and quick put her overshoes on and heaviest coat and everything and get out and help. Who was it? Who was it that was there then? I don't know. I forget.
And Ted was his name, was it?
Oh, Ted, yeah, he had a brother that was not mentally good and had epileptic seizures, so he helped.
Mhm.
That-
pick
that-
It was
corn.
That
my
was-
job to drive the horses again while my dad picked the corn, you know. And when
These
he would,
went right on their own.
Mhm.
They went right
Oh.
down the roads just
well,
like
I
me.
had to drive them, and when my dad would have that area picked, then he'd say, "Go ahead," and I'd say, "Giddy up," and then just go a little bit more, and then my dad would be throwing the corn in there and hit that bang board like you said, you know.
Mhm.
And every once in a while I'd get hit in the head. You know, he'd make a mistake and throw it, and I'd clang, the corn would hit me in the
Yeah,
head.
that wasn't a mistake a lot of times.
No, I
'Cause
and then I'd holler, "Ow, Dad, you hit me!" And he'd laugh. He thought that was funny, you know. And we raised pumpkins where the corn didn't grow. Then my dad would have me go through the cornfield he made a little hole for me with a shorter handle and a bag of pumpkin seeds hanging on the side of me, and I had to put 5 pumpkin seeds in where the corn didn't come up. I put pumpkin seeds in there and have to cover it over, you know. Well, one day I was going down the row and I tripped and I fell, and all them pumpkin seeds fell out.
Oh,
So I picked up what I could, but I got tired of picking them up. So I thought, oh shoot, I'll just cover them up so I don't have to pick them up. Well, you know what those dumb pumpkin seeds did? They told on me, they growed. And my dad went out in the field to plow, and there was that big bunch of pumpkin seeds coming up in one spot. And he came in, and I was in the house, and he said, "What'd you do with them pumpkin seeds that you gave me?" And I said, "Well, I planted them." "Yeah," he says, "all in one spot." And then I knew I got caught. I forgot them dumb pumpkin seeds would grow, you know, and tell on me.
Can't get out. Go. Did you make it?
yeah, I made it.
Tell about that time you told us about that time that you stole some corn for your geese or your ducks.
Oh, it was awful.
Big time. I was talking Mom.
Oh,
You-
okay.
My ducks, I always would go to the corn crib and get ears of corn and shell it, and then feed my ducks shelled corn, you know. They couldn't eat it off like chickens could, you know. And that was their food every night. And so, anyhow, spring come and the corn crib was getting real low on corn, and my dad says, "I don't want you feeding those ducks corn anymore. They can get plenty of stuff they can pick up and bugs and stuff, you know." Because he says, "We need to save that corn for the horses. When they work in the fields, they had to have corn." So I couldn't stand it, you know, not feeding my ducks. So I waited till my dad was in the barn, and I sneaked into the corn crib, and I got some corn and stuck it down my bloomers, inside my bloomers, you know, and thought I could sneak out in the orchard where my dad wouldn't see me and shell that corn and feed my ducks. So I come out of the, you know, out of the corn crib. I didn't see my dad any place, so I started walking, and the darn elastic broke in my bloomers, and the corn all fell out on the ground, right there, and all of a sudden I heard this big booming voice behind me. "What are you doing?" It was my dad. He caught me. It was embarrassing, you know. I got caught in stealing that corn. I didn't get to feed my ducks corn.
Corn picking used to be a big sport. And they'd have corn picking contests.
Oh, yeah?
And people would come in the fields with
Yeah.
their wagons and they'd shoot our gun off or something, and then they'd go and see who could pick up the most corn. But it is a regular deal. Corn, when you're picking, you had to be looking at another year, picking one year and looking for the next one.
Oh.
You throw it in one hand and grab the other one with the other hand.
And they had some kind of a strap that went around their
Husking
hand
peg.
with a hook on it, and that helped them tear the shucks
Husking
off.
peg.
Husking peg, that was it, yeah.
Did you ever enter that contest, Uncle Vern?
No, I was too young to.
Did you ever, Mom?
Oh, no,
Corn picking contest?
no, I was
I've
just a
seen
kid.
'em.
Oh.
But they had one guy out there, I forget his name now, but he usually won it every time.
Mm-hmm.
Picked the most corn. You had to pick it and make sure it was clean, no husk on it or nothing.
Oh, wow.
And when you pick it, it's a certain way you pick it. You get rid of the husk and twist it off quick
Really?
and give it a sling.
Oh, my goodness.
And you wouldn't look at the wagon at all. You just had to throw it and look for the next ear, grab it and husk it and throw it, and look for the next ear and grab it. You usually pick 3 rows at a time.
Oh, my God.
Well, how many ears of corn are there on one stalk? About 5?
2 to 3.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 or 3 years
I
on
thought the corn
it.
kind of grew all the way several
No,
years down the stalk.
No,
Yeah,
there's only
it would
about.
be about 2 or 3
there's-
years on the
My
stock.
dad always saw to it
But
that there was
there'd be, there-
3 years of corn come up in the hill. But in those days, the corn was planted about this far apart. There was a hill here and a hill here, and then about 3.
It was planted that way so they
so
could
that they could go
cultivate it.
through it with a cultivator
Oh.
and cultivate it. Now they can't plant it right in rows, and they use a weed killer so they don't have to cultivate.
They use huskers now. They don't husk it by hand no more.
Mm-mm. They have corn picker machines that do it. It goes right down and shells them and picks it at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
We need to probably get on the road here.
Yeah.
Any last thing you want to say?
Yeah.
Those are
Did
the
your-
best
Did
days,
your
right?
did Grandpa Huber,
Boy.
Ed Huber, ever chew you out for anything?
Yeah, he used to come out to our farm and stay, 3 or 4 weeks at a time when we lived on the farm.
No, I
He's
meant
talking-
your dad.
She's talking about Dad.
Your
Our
dad.
dad.
Oh,
Did he ever chew you out for doing anything? Did you ever do anything bad?
do anything to
Like
me?
steal
You mean?
corn and put it in your pants.
Did you ever get caught doing a bad
Oh
thing?
yeah, good night. Yeah, that was my favorite hobby, getting caught in something. One
He
time,
had a little
no,
car.
Vern's got a story.
Tell him about the time you traded a car for something with Dale Carlson. I can't remember.
yeah, he was supposed to give me 8 wheels for an old pedal car I had. And boy, if I had them 8 wheels, I could build a lot of things. Well, he come up there with his dad in the car and only had 4 wheels. So I couldn't say nothing because his dad was there. And Dad said, "What did you do that for? You had 4 good wheels on that car, didn't you?"
Oh.
I
But
guess
he-
they had to take their stuff back and you kept your car, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I didn't. They took the car.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I kept the wheels.
I
But I
think
had-
they got the better deal.
But I had a lot of fun with the 4 wheels. I built carts out of it, and old cars and
Oh.
whatnot.
So you got caught doing something bad from your dad? Did he
Yeah,
chew
one
you
time
out?
he bought a bunch of lumber planks to build in the horse barn, and he piled it all up in an east pile up beside the barn. And I seen that, and I told her, "Boy, wouldn't that make a nice thing if we made a stage?" Because they had a lot of stage shows in them days, what they call soap shows, you know. I said we could make our own stage there. So I told we'd take that center row of boards out and put over the top and have a tunnel under there, so we'd go into there and then come out on the stage. Well, we got it all built good. Took us a whole day. And Dad come home that night and he looked at that pile. What in the Sam Hill and all those dirty words that come happened to that pile. They said, "Did you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, we did." He said, "Well, you get out there and put them right back the way they were." And
Oh, all that hard work.
yeah.
And then you had to do it by yourself, or did you have your
Yeah, I
friends
had to
help
do it
you?
by myself. Yeah.
Oh,
You
And they-
remember the time that you and Willard and Nicola got my frogs out of the horse tank? You know, I used to go down the creek and catch frogs and put them in the horse tank, and they were kind of my pets, you know. And Willard and Nicola came to visit, so my mom let Vern stay home from school because they had company. He was my age, but he played with you because you were a boy, you know. And I came home from school, and they had a plate of something on the plate, and they said, "Here, try these." And I said, "What are they?" They said, "Frog legs."
oh.
I said, "Where'd you get them?" Here, they'd gone in my horse tank and gotten my pet frogs and fried them. And they were laughing how when you fry them, they jump out of the frying pan. I thought it was funny. I know.
There were some bad times. Never seen.
I was so mad at that Willard McCullough for coming over there and eating my frogs.
Remember the time he shot through the screen door, hit you?
Oh, gee, yes, that was awful. Yeah,
BB gun.
You got a BB gun for Christmas. And of course, Willard came over and he thought that was great. And I happened to come to the
We were
porch
looking
of-
for bad men.
Yeah. And I was standing there looking out the
He's
window to
first
see what
bad
they were
man
doing.
he's seen.
And he shot at me. It's a wonder he didn't hit me in the eye. Hit me right in the arm. It went through the screen and made a welt on my arm. So that would have really put my eye out.
Oh, gee.
No, I never forgot that. That was awful.
Yeah, he got a bowling out for that.
Yeah.
We didn't do no shooting for quite a while.
Do you think you're gonna make
I
it?
know. I
Yeah, we're all ready to go. I better make a trip to the bathroom.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah.
It,
We have to leave now.
traffic will get bad going down there.
Boy, we sure appreciated you guys coming, gosh.
I
You'll
know.
You'll never know how much.
Putting up with us.
You never know how much it meant to us.
Yeah.
And Terry, I sure appreciate you doing what you did.
No, we didn't do much.
You made it so nice for us, and
You fed us good.
Beth, you did a good job of cooking and everything. You made it so nice for us.